In this video, let's see how to crochet this simple 2-row repeat easy scarf pattern. So let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts.
For making this scarf, I have used loops and threads yarn. It's in a sea glass color. It's a 4-weight medium 100% acrylic yarn, and it's a part of facets acrylic from loops and threads. And I've used a 4mm crochet hook. However, for the sample to make in this video, I'm using a 4-ply acrylic yarn with a 4mm crochet hook. You can use your favorite yarn with its suitable hook size. Now let us begin by making a slip knot. Take the starting tail end in your left hand and make a loop with the working end on your hand. Now from the center of the loop, insert your crochet hook and pull up the yarn, and then pull the starting tail end to make a knot. Now adjust the loop and let's start making the foundation chain. Yarn over and pull out a loop. So that's the foundation chain, and we are going to make a foundation chain of the required measurement. For my scarf, I have made 267 chains, but however for this sample size I have made chain 21. But make sure the foundation chain should be in odd counts. Once the foundation chain is completed, now we are going to start making the first row. So for that we are going to begin with a height chain, and throughout this project whatever height chain we are making, we are going to ignore that height chain. So point the 21st chain and then begin with chain 2, and we are going to ignore that. Now yarn over, insert the hook into the 21st chain of the foundation chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now you will have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull out the yarn through first 2 loops, and then you'll have 2 more loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull the yarn through those 2 loops. So that is a double crochet. In order to avoid confusion and to understand how many stitches we have done, I'm going to put a stitch marker on the top of the first stitch on each and every row. As we are ignoring the chain 2, the first DC will be the actual DC which we have done. So I have put the stitch marker on the top of first double stitch. Now I am doing the next double crochet stitch in the next chain. So that's the second DC. Again yarn over into the next chain, drop a loop and make 1 DC in that chain, and continue to make double crochet stitches in each and every chain without leaving any chain of the foundation, and continue it until you reach the starting chain of your foundation chain. The count depends upon the number of chains you have made for your foundation chain, and in this sample, as I have made 21 chains, I will get 21 double crochet stitches excluding the starting chain 2, which we have already ignored. This completes the first row. Now chain 2, turn your work from the front to back, yarn over, insert the hook into the first stitch and pull up a loop, and then make a first double crochet of the second row. Now this one will be the first DC of the second row. So to mark that, I am putting another stitch marker into that stitch. So that's 1 DC, and in the next stitch make 1 more DC, and in the third stitch make 1 DC. So I am just making 3 DCs at the start and at the end of each row, so that it will have a solid edging instead of getting a loose ends. If you want, you can just skip that and make a mesh pattern for the second row. So to create the mesh pattern, make chain 1, skip the next stitch, and in the later stitch make 1 DC. So you'll have a block or square kind of hollow structure look. Again for the next one, again chain 1, skip the next stitch, and in the later stitch make 1 DC. Again make chain 1, skip 1 stitch, in the later stitch make 1 DC. So this is the mesh stitch pattern, and we are going to repeat this pattern of chain 1, skip 1 and 1 DC in the later stitch throughout the row until you have last 3 stitches remaining. So if you see, you will have 3 normal stitches at the edge and the complete mesh row till the last 3 stitches. And in the last 3 stitches, again to give the border, I am going to make DC stitches. So here this completes the last mesh stitch, and I will have 2 more stitches left, which means the last stitch of the mesh stitch and the last 2 DCs together will make a 3 double crochet stitches. And if you see, the stitch marker indicates the last stitch which we have to make in the second row. So remove the stitch marker, and in that DC make your last stitch of second row. So this is how the ending of the second row looks like, and with the entire row of mesh work. So starting and ending 3 stitches will have the solid stitches. Now we'll go to the third row, begin with chain 2 and then turn the work to the back side. Yarn over, make 1 DC into the first stitch and mark this stitch as a first DC in your third row. Now we are going to make a solid DC line here. So first make 3 DCs, like the first DC we have put a stitch marker, and then 2 DC over the previous 2 DCs, so that's 3 DC. And now in the next chain 1 gap, make a DC into that chain 1 space. Then insert the needle on the top of the previous DC and then make 1 more DC. And now we are going to repeat this pattern, like 1 DC in the chain 1 space and 1 DC on top of the previous DC. Again 1 DC in the chain 1 gap and 1 DC on top of the DC. And we are going to repeat this pattern throughout the length of the scarf until you reach the last stitch where we have put the stitch marker. Continue it throughout until you reach the last one. So here, if you see, I am making the last DC into the chain 1 gap, and then we'll have 3 more stitches until the last stitch. So make 1 DC in each of the next 3 stitches. That's 2. And the final one, we have to remove the stitch marker, and into that stitch insert your hook and complete the double stitch. This completes the third row, which is a solid line. So if you see, there is 1 solid line, 1 mesh line, and again a solid line. And now we are going to repeat the mesh work line for the next row. So from here forward, we are going to repeat second row and third row alternatively. So I'm just showing you the pattern again. Chain 2 and turn your work. Begin with 3 double crochet stitches. So that's the first one. And to mark the first stitch, put a stitch marker on top of the first DC. Now make 2 more DCs. That's the second one. And then the third one. Now from here we are going to begin the mesh work. So for that, make chain 1 and then we'll make a DC. So we are continuing the mesh pattern. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and in the later stitch make 1 DC. Again chain 1, skip 1 chain, and in the later stitch make 1 DC. And chain 1, skip the next stitch, and in the later stitch make 1 DC, and repeat it throughout the row until you have the last 2 stitches remaining. So that's the last 2 stitches. Complete the last 2 DCs, remove the stitch marker and make a DC. And this completes the 4th row, and this looks exactly similar to the second row. And now the mesh work is completed. We are going to repeat the solid line for the row 5. So we are going to repeat 3rd row for making 5th row. So begin with chain 2, turn your work, and then yarn over into the first stitch, make 1 DC. And then put a stitch marker to mark the first stitch, and in the next 2 stitches make 1 DC in each stitch. So that's 3 DCs. And now we are making 1 DC in the chain 1 space and 1 DC on top of a previous DC. Again 1 DC in chain 1 space and 1 DC on top of a previous DC, and we are going to repeat it throughout the row until the last stitches of the scarf. And once the last stitches are completed, you can continue this pattern of row 2 and row 3 until you have the required width of the scarf. So here I have completed 5 lines. If needed, you can make up to 7 lines or 9 or 11, 13. So basically this pattern should be completed with odd number of rows. So if you see the actual pattern, I have made up to 13 lines. So let me just check the count and let see. What's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13. So this is a 13 rows pattern, and for this sample size I have made 9 rows. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So 9 lines or 11, 13 depending upon your interest length of the scarf. And once it is done, make chain 1 and then pull out the loop out of the last chain, and this completes the scarf of your required width and required length. This completes the scarf pattern, but however, if you notice, I have added tassels at both the edges of the scarf. Now I will show you how to make them and attach those tassels to the project. So for that, I have taken the same yarn and wrapped it around the book as shown in the video for few loops, and then trim the yarn to make them as individual strands. Now I am picking up 3 threads at a time and I am going to fold them in half. Now grab the yarns on your left hand and insert the hook into the chain 2 height stitches which we have done in every alternate row. So the chain 2 of the first row, put your needle, grab those yarns on the hook and pull up a loop out of all the 3 threads at a time. Now from this loop, insert your fingers and grab the rest of the yarn tail ends out of this loop and pull the tail ends to make a tassel attached to the base of the scarf. And we are going to repeat the same thing. Insert the hook into the chain 2 gap of the alternate row, put the threads on the loop needle, pull up a loop, and now yarn over and pull all the loops from the loop, and that's the tassels, and we are going to attach the tassels on either side in alternative rows. Once all the tassels are attached, I am going to use the tapestry needle to hide the starting and finishing tail ends into the tassels as shown in the video. It's the easiest way to hide the tail ends. And with that, you have made yourself this beautiful scarf. I hope you all enjoyed watching this tutorial. Do give this pattern a try and let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Written pattern is given in the description. Do check it out. See you all in the next video.
Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.